Hi, welcome to the Open Case channel. Today we bring you a new case for you. I hope you enjoy it. We hope you are all well from wherever in the world you are tuned to this channel, so let's go. On December 14, 2004, 8 agents of the Wild Boar Group went after the report of a rather unusual event, something that very rarely can be witnessed and in the eyes of anyone, could cause astonishment and bewilderment. Although this has existed throughout history, today is described as an inhuman and despicable act. This practice refers to feeding with members of the same species, cannibalism. When these agents entered the place, they were able to witness a scene more than incredible and surprising, a creepy scene, being the protagonist of this story, a subject who was identified as Gumaro De Dios Arias, who inside his home, had different stews and roasts made with a peculiar ingredient, a man, who was identified as Raul Gonzalez, who was the lover of this subject. Gumaro De Dios was born on April 7, 1978, in Azucena de Tabasco, Mexico, son of Candelario De Dios and Ana Arias, and had 10 siblings. At the age of 6, he was abused by a relative. From this point on, his behavior began to change. Now he was seen playing with dolls. Even when he played with other children, he told them he was a girl and was attracted to them. Sometimes he was seen playing gunman and ran screaming, "I am a bad boy, but I am also a bad woman." It was clear that his behavior was not normal, but as he was still a child, they did not give him greater importance. However, as the years went by, he would grow up with very marked traumas, and as a teenager he had an accident, as he was run over by a trailer. After recovering from the incident, he was seen to behave even stranger, because sometimes he would move away and was seen caressing a mare, and when no one saw him he would have sex with her. He would fantasize that it was an American woman, with whom he would have children. Already as a teenager you could notice a slight mental retardation, in addition to suffering from schizophrenia, because sometimes he was seen talking to himself and laughing. When it came to work, he was too lazy, because when he was asked to help in the field, he mentioned that he did not want to be a farmer and lay there doing nothing. He mentioned that he did not want to be a farmer and would lie down and do nothing. Constantly in the afternoons he would go out and get drunk. He was even seen using drugs, and this had become a daily occurrence. People who saw him mentioned that sometimes he behaved like a woman, and sometimes he was the devil himself. So when he was 14 years old, his father, tired of his son doing nothing and his bad behavior, enlisted him in the army, and far from rectifying his behavior, Gumaro De Dios got into a fight with a second lieutenant and was sent to a cell and arrested. When he came out he felt a great anger, so he took a knife and wounded the second lieutenant in the thorax and legs and fled from the army. He returned again to the Azucena Rancheria in Cardenas, Tabasco. Far from a change, he began to become more addicted to different substances of all kinds, until one day, in a fit of madness, he committed an extremely regrettable act, because he abused his nephew, barely 1 year old. The baby was reported very serious, although the family at that time did not know who did that to the child. They would discover it some time later. In the year 2000 he was arrested and taken to the prison of Cardenas. He thought at first that he had been arrested for the damage he did to his nephew, but after serving his sentence, he learned that it was for the theft of a tape recorder and 5 shirts. There he spent 1 year and 6 months. On this occasion, after his family did not visit him, he decided to go to Chetumal, in the state of Quintana Roo. In the year 2004, a man challenged him with a machete in Mahahual, a Mayan area, near the sea. That man began to insult him and mock him. So in an oversight, he took the machete and began to fillet him, like a fish, leaving him lying on the ground. After the wounds, he mentions that night, after fleeing, the spirit of this man appeared to him. After this he went to a region called the Petén, which is located between Mexico and Belize, where he was wandering until he found a building where he lived for some time. There he meets an old man, who is referred to as the Wise Man, an old Mayan sorcerer, to whom he makes a promise to kill 3 people. In that same town, he meets a young man of 19 years, called Raul Gonzalez, alias El Pelon or El Guacho, who had a distinctive tattoo, with a man of a woman, who had been a deserter from the army, from the 31st Infantry Battalion, for stealing a gun. Soon became good friends, as both had problems with drinking and drugs, going from being good friends to become lovers, thus escaping to an abandoned palapa. The palapa was part of a real estate company, which had been destined to create a residential subdivision, and as neither of them worked and had no way to support themselves, sometimes they went to the coastal city and went to steal valuables from some houses. In addition, they went with tourists, who gave them money in exchange for having sex. Arias, that day, they were doing the usual, consuming illicit substances and alcohol. There came a point where the drink was finished, and having no money, he remembered that Raul, his lover, owed him 500 pesos, so he asked him for it to go buy more alcohol. This mentioned that he had no money to pay him. so Gumaro was furious and took the first thing he had in sight, a thick electric cable, and began to hit his lover. When he passed out, he hung him up, and when he woke up, he asked him again for his money. He told him that he had spent it, so in an attempt to defend himself, Gumaro took a concrete block and threw it on his head. Once on the ground, he hit him non-stop, until he realized that his head was crushed, but as he was still moving, he took the cable and put it around his neck and pulled hard until he stopped moving and hung him up again. The next day, he went to the market, and with the money Raul had, he bought some ingredients to cook it. When he returned, he lit the grill and lifted the heart, some ribs, and a kidney. The next day he took the other leg and cooked it in the same way. He also tasted strips of raw meat, as well as 4 ribs. The whole weekend he fed on his meat. After that, the place was full of flies, and as he was disgusted to see them, he did not eat the remaining ribs. It was then that a young man known as the Parka, he approached the palapa and was greeted by Gumaro. This immediately invited him a piece of meat. The young man accepted, until he realized that the appearance of the meat was strange. Then he looked out to see inside and saw remains of a body everywhere. So, horrified, he left there. The rumor of what he had done quickly spread, and soon the neighbors approached to verify the testimony of the young man. It is then where they see Gumaro in the light of day, manipulating the limbs, but no one knew what to do until a cab driver gave notice to the municipal police and the judicial police of the events. It was 7:40 in the morning of Tuesday, December 14, 2004. 8 agents of the Wild Boar Group went to the place where the facts had been reported. Upon arrival, they were surprised and terrified at something so unusual, because they found him asleep next to the remains of the corpse, lying in a hammock, hugging the putrefied torso, without head or limbs. They also found part of the ingredients used to cook the meat, a cooler with beers. One of the agents asked him to get up quickly. They handcuffed him. They mentioned that he looked like an animal, like a primitive man. He immediately monopolized the news and the headlines of the newspapers all over El País. In an interview he said, "It occurred to me to take out everything inside, the heart, the both, the ribs. It was delicious, it tasted like lamb. That's why I ate the kidney. I only left the skins, because they were very leathery." After his arrest, he accepted the charges against him and showed no remorse for his conduct, even stating that he did not regret anything and that he had always had the desire to taste human flesh. He was transferred to the prison of Playa del Carmen, where the other prisoners refused to share a cell with him. During his stay in the municipal prison of Playa del Carmen, Gumaro De Dios began to cause terror among the prison population, because they describe him as an aggressive subject. They mention that on one occasion, he cut off part of his left ear to eat it, because he claimed that he missed the taste of human flesh. After that, a few months later, he threatened to eat the prison cook. During his stay, he was feared even by the inmates of high danger, because he talked alone. Sometimes he looked at the other inmates, without taking his eyes off them, and many feared that in an outburst he would eat them. Even when journalists and psychiatrists visited him, he introduced himself saying, "Hello, I am the cannibal," as if he was proud of what he had done, and because of his behavior, they began to give him antidepressant and sleeping pills, which made him sleep for a long time. So on March 20, 2007, a judge decided to transfer him to a social rehabilitation center in the state of Morelos, as he was considered mentally ill. There he was subjected to psychological and psychiatric studies to determine his legal situation. In September 2008, he returned to the Social Rehabilitation Center of Chetumal, where he was isolated from the other prisoners, placing him in a special cell, as many mentioned that he was feared for having an insatiable taste for human flesh, although it could also be thought that he only did that so that no one would mess with him and thus appear intimidating. The truth is that after the studies he underwent, they were able to determine that he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, which is diagnosed to people who have constant delusions, which are accompanied by auditory hallucinations, which can disturb the environment and their perception of the world. He mentioned that he was still looking for his third victim, and apparently he had already found it. It was a prisoner, that according to his words, just seeing him made his blood boil. He added that fulfilling his promise, the sage would give him what he had promised. Once this was done, he would live up to 150 years more. Among other things he mentioned, he said that killing is like taking the life of a chicken. Then he mentioned that by eating his lover, he acquired all his power. That is to say, he then mentioned that by eating his lover, he acquired all his power, that is, the skills of that subject would be part of him, and as Raul, his partner, was good as a bricklayer, now, he would be much better. With the studies they performed on him, they could realize that he suffered from acquired immune deficiency syndrome or AIDS, and only 4 years after this, on Tuesday, September 11, 2012, he died in the General Hospital of Chetumal. Quintana Roo, at 34 years of age, he was buried in the Azucena Rancheria of the municipality of Cardenas, Tabasco. His case inspired the song Cannibal, interpreted by Kinky and Lupe Esparza, which served as the theme of the movie Argentina, The Daughter of the Cannibal, in addition to a book Lapalapa where Gumaro De Dios murdered and devoured a man, returned to be an office of marketing lots for another residential housing project, a rather surprising case. That makes our imagination and our thinking fly as we cannot decipher the thoughts of the mind, what things remain in the depths of a human being. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel, give a like and leave your opinion about the story. Send us an email open case if you would like to see a case. See you next time.